What's up everybody and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna share you a bit of my experience in traveling. So we're gonna talk about traveling. I got a lot of mentions and messages, how do I travel? Because back when I was still in college, I traveled lots of time and I've got a lot of opportunities. And here I am, I'm gonna share you my tips of how to travel cheap. The first one is you need to book your accommodation and your airlines or any bookings in incognito mode or in a private browser. So you just want to delete all the cookies and they don't trace you whatever you want to find, and you get them much more cheaper. If you want to get more cheaper, use a VPN. VPN can also be very advantageous. So when I was in Australia, I used VPN like from New Zealand, and then I used another VPN when I was in America, and I got a really good deal. This happens when I was about to travel to Europe all the way from Australia, and it actually does work. So make sure to find out the VPN that's best for you, and also book your flights in private mode or incognito. That's really good. And now for the next one is traveling with a budget airline. If you want to travel using a budget airline, there are things that you need to consider. The food service, you need to pay more, and then you cannot board the flight early. You have to pay for that if you want it. And also the baggage allowance. The allowance is usually just carry on, that's free, and they're not included with any baggage at all. So if you have an extra baggage, you have to buy it. Also, if you want to sit where you desire, you need to pay extra more. It's all about paying extra with a budgeted airline, you know. If you want to find out the best time when to travel, just subscribe to their newsletter. They'll tell you exactly what time is best to fly, and also with a very cheap price. While you're at it, it is also better if you can look for cheap destinations. Like in Southeast Asia, there are so many beautiful things you can enjoy in Southeast Asia. There are many places that's also cheap, and you just need to do more of your research. And finally, this is my last tip about flying. Flying on Tuesday and Wednesday is much more cheaper. If you're on a very high peak season, then yeah, you might not get any good prices. It just, everything's the same. But if it's on like off season, it's possible that you can actually travel on Tuesday and Wednesday much cheaper. And now my next tip is time. So regarding time, you need to travel flexible and book early and also on off season. That is the best time to travel because you get it for cheaper prices. And if you book earlier, like say in advance, you get way much more cheaper prices. If you can be more flexible, like if you want to rebook it, it's also easier because you know your time span is still very long. So time, be flexible, book in advance, and also on off season. Now my next tip is consider to try alternative airports. So it is very common back when I was in Australia. I usually fly to Melbourne a lot. I live in Brisbane and I fly a lot of times to Melbourne. And one of the ways to travel to Melbourne cheaper is all the way from Brisbane to Gold Coast, and then Gold Coast flying to Melbourne. I know it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of time of myself to get on myself on a bus and a train, but in comparison, it was very cheaper when I fly from Gold Coast to Melbourne instead of from Brisbane to Melbourne. Now my next tip is choosing the best adventure. What I mean by this is look for websites that have discounts. What I mean by discount is, yes, exactly, discount, website of discounts like Groupon. For those who doesn't know Groupon, they have a lot of activities and adventures that you can choose, which is way cheaper, and you save more money instead of buying it on the official websites. It's like a third party, but it is official. It saves you a lot of money, and I used Groupon when I was in America and it freaking worked. Now, my next tip again is traveling on a carry-on. So you better travel light. Basically, you just need to bring your backpack. And it's amazing how you can actually travel with just a backpack for days or weeks and to many countries. Believe me, I know it's hard to travel light, I'm a girl and it's still very difficult for myself to travel. I really did enjoy myself. It's much more less stressful and I don't have to carry too much weight whenever I travel. It's much more easier to bring anywhere wherever I travel. So travel light with a carry-on. And now my next tip is accommodation. So choosing an accommodation, you can go with hostel, Airbnb, and even COUCHSURFING. Hostels are actually a really great place. You get to know people, you get to make connections. It's really easy to meet new people in hostels. Also, if you want to get a much more cheaper room, you can go into a much more large dorms instead of a small dorm. But if you are shy and you don't like in the mixed dorms, you can also choose staying in a female dorms or a male dorm. They have that kind of option sometimes. I use HOSTELWORLD to book my accommodation for hostels. It's really great. Airbnb, you can actually go for a share room or you can have your own private room. It's much way cheaper instead of having the entire apartment for yourself. But if you want to save a lot of money, share a room or a private room is way better. You can also ask your host for the best things you can do in the local district, and they are happily to help you. And lastly is couchsurfing. Couchsurfing is free and you basically sleep on the couch. And you meet the host as well. They're really great people. You can also ask them for advice and suggestions, the things you can do in the local area. They'll gladly help you as well. I personally never used it, but I heard couchsurfing is great, so I'm gonna try couchsurfing the next time I'm gonna travel. Okay, now for my next tip is paying with points. If you are a member, for example, a hotel member like myself, I'm an Accor member and a Hilton member, and I get points. And you need to be very sufficient of how to claim it. And it's very good to cut off your budget. It saves a lot of money by paying with points. Now, my next tip is about food or meals. Believe me, I lost a lot of money when it comes to food. I just realized I lost like hundreds of dollars already in a week just for food. Just cook. Cooking is easy. You can cook it in your hostels or even at your Airbnb and couchsurfing places. They will show you their kitchen happily. You can get your own food in the supermarkets. You can make sandwiches, you can make pasta. It's really easy. Or if you don't like to cook it and you don't have the time, you can also try street food. On the truck ones or a normal vendor, they're usually much more cheaper. And of course, eat more during lunch is gonna save you a lot of money. But if you wanna be sneaky like me, if I stay in a hostel, I would take like their boiled eggs and make myself a sandwich with that boiled eggs. And now to my next tip is discount cards. Now on that time I was a student to travel, so I have the benefit to use my student ID card to get discount. I got myself an ISIC card or ISIC card. It's an international student identification card. I made this when I was in Poland and it saves me a lot of money. Whenever I travel in Europe, I get a lot of cheaper prices. For museums and other attractions, like even movie, it really helps and I've used it everywhere. Even in Malaysia, I used it when I was back in Malaysia and it freaking worked. And now my next tip is regarding transport. I try to avoid online transportation as much as possible, except when it comes to night times and I'm really lost. There's no more public transportation anymore. So I try to rely more on public transportation because they are way cheaper. I get on the bus or a tram or a monorail. It's way much more better instead of being in a taxi. To choose a cheaper transportation for your travel, you can try looking with Skyscanner or Kayak. Or you can also try the official website. Sometimes they also give you great deals instead of the Skyscanner. It can happen. When I was in Europe, I used the app OMIO. OMIO really helps me a lot, and most of the times I use OMIO to travel around Europe. When I was traveling in Europe, I tried to avoid at all costs with airlines. I wanted to travel with the bus or either the trains, but I would choose the bus more, despite it takes longer. Also, if you don't like using the bus, you can always try the train. The train costs a little bit more, but it takes to your destination way faster. But I like traveling with the bus because it saves money. And while you're actually on your way to your destination, bear in mind that you need to be comfy with discomfort. When I was traveling from one country to another country in Europe, usually I get the night buses, and this means it takes hours to arrive on my destination, and I sleep on the bus as well. Sleeping while you're actually sitting down, it's really a pain. It's the same thing as also flying. It happens to me flying all the way from Australia to Europe. It takes me like 2 to 3 layovers. That was the longest flight I've ever had in my life. So you gotta learn how to be comfort in discomfort. Regarding even accommodations, it could be also noisy. Sometimes the doors are opening and closing. And airline services with Budget Airline, because a Budget Airline basically just trying to take you to your destination since you're paying for that kind of price. But hey, I got a lot of experience from it. So learning how to be comfort in discomfort is also a great thing to remember. And now to my next tip is regarding paying. Paying is also a problem. If you have a credit card, try to have a credit card that doesn't charge you too much in a foreign exchange currency. And usually I pay with cash wherever I visited any country in the world. So if you want to get some cash, one thing for sure, do not exchange them in the airport. It's way worse. Just try to exchange them outside of the airport. You get much more better exchange rate. I have an Australian account because they actually offer me a travel money card, and travel money card is actually really great. They actually convert it to good foreign currency. So I usually use this travel money card wherever I travel, and it saves me a lot of money. Now to my next tip is walking lots of time. If you walk, imagine you're gonna save a lot of money instead of being on public transport or even the online transportation you can find. Walking more actually is much more better for your health as well, and you can also enjoy the sun or enjoy the people that you met outside. You can also enjoy a lot of free places like the museums or maybe the parks. There are many free things to do in the city that you're traveling to. Just look it up and do some research regarding the city that you're gonna visit, what are the free places and the things you can do there. And now my next tip is about volunteer. If you participate in any volunteer program abroad, you're actually learning a lot of things. You share experiences, you're also exchanging culture, and you're also teaching people of that community. I have volunteer experiences twice to Poland, and I actually do have the time to travel in Poland as well and around the country that time, and I saved a lot of money because when I was volunteering, they actually gave you accommodation and they provide you food as well. And now my next tip is buy a local SIM card. So when I was traveling in Singapore, I buy the Singaporean SIM card. When I was in Malaysia, I bought their SIM card, except Europe. In Europe, it's a little bit much more special case because the countries are very side to each other. Lastly of my tip is do your research. If you want to visit a country or a city that you're gonna travel to, make sure that you find out about the things you need to do or to prepare before coming to the country. For example, if you need a visa to travel, then you need to make a visa. And when you're traveling to this country, you also need to find out about the weather. Is it gonna be hot? Is it gonna be rainy? Is it gonna be cold? I used to live in Australia, and the seasons in Australia and Europe is basically upside down. So when it's summertime in Australia, it is wintertime in Europe. So yeah, do your research. Basically anything, and try to put a budget as well. Alright guys, and thank you for watching my video. I hope you like my tips in traveling on how to travel cheap. Don't forget to comment down below if you want to know other things about traveling, and give me a thumbs up as well, and subscribe to get more information regarding traveling as well. And don't forget to hit that bell to get the notifications too. Alright everybody, and see you next time. Dadah!